everybody. This is Train of Thought. I'm Jake again, and this week we have Baltimore extraordinaire, burlesque icon, drag king royalty. I mean, it's royalty in the name, and also just an all-around fun time. It's Kenny Rooster.
Woo, woo, woo!
Hey!
Delighted to be here.
Kenny, what is up? What's the tea? Are the boots housed down? What is going on with you?
The boots, the whole house is down.
The whole house is down.
The whole house is down.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm delighted to be here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so thrilled. I'm tired.
Yes,
I'm going to start this off with
Yes.
a scintillating.
Oh.
A scintillating story.
Yes.
That begins with how I'm tired.
Yes.
No, that was a really big lead-in, actually.
Nothing new.
There it is. No, I don't know. Shows are going really well. Fascism is on the rise.
It is. The house is down, but the fascism is up.
Yes, exactly.
We are all doing our fucking best.
We are all doing our best.
Well, this is going to be the best. Thank you so much for being here. Super excited to have you.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm also just going to do a take of the word fascism so everybody knows I can pronounce it. Yeah, for the edit, fascism. Okay.
I know, it's really confusing. It's written like fascism, and if you say that, they laugh at you.
It's true.
Which is not exactly always the goal. So, I'm going to start at the beginning, because you say this a lot in a lot of your shows. Kenny, who the fuck is Sarah Lawrence? Who the fuck is that?
Oh my god, well, I actually Googled before the show.
Okay.
I know.
So you didn't know either.
No, I did. I've been told multiple times,
Okay.
but unfortunately, my brain is a sieve.
Mm-hmm.
And, the things that are large enough to not fall through the cracks aren't always what I'd like them to be.
Exactly.
There it is.
As someone who knows every Pokemon name, but not how to do my taxes, I get it.
There we go. So Sarah Lawrence was the wife of the man who founded the college. Yes, he dedicated it to her.
So she's a Nepo wife.
After her death. Yes.
Nepo wife. Love that for her.
Nepo deceased wife.
Oh, God.
She never got to go there. He never even, because of her being dead. But he never even got to live to see it fully open, but it was still opened in his vision of starting a women's education facility. That I think, it sounds like definitely in the beginning at least focused on like women's
things,
women's stuff,
women's worlds.
True.
But it was haunted from the beginning. Is what I mean. You went to deceased Nepo wife college.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. I asked because you talk about it on stage, but I was curious. Like, we've had like Jenna Frick on, and she was part of her sketch troupe in college. So you were part of Feral Christine, which was a sketch and improv troupe. Were you doing just sketch with them, or were you doing improv too?
No. We did weekly improv shows.
Oh, weekly?
Yeah, weekly improv shows, and then we would have like sketch shows. So we would do, some of them would be prepared, but we also had the classic 24-hour sketch show. My personal favorite event.
I saw the flyer for that, which was just based on 24. And I used to do like a few 24-hour play festivals, mostly because I was trying to sleep with one of the directors. It worked, to be clear.
Love.
But
worth it.
So was that your sort of first intro? Because you went to school for like theater and dramatic arts, but was that your first sort of entree into comedy?
Yeah, actually it was. I had always been pretty funny and had done a lot of sort of comedic theatrical stuff, but this was my first actually
actual factual.
Yes, comedy.
So does that mean in high school before that you were most likely to be one of these people?
Obsessed. Oh my god! Wow. Oh my god, there I am. I blacked out. Yes.
You're that one?
I'm that one.
I did not expect that.
I know.
I was like, okay, so Kenny's got to be like one of these other redheads over here.
We all contain multitudes.
We all are a deep, deep well of flyers from our past.
Literally obsessed. So, yeah, that was me in high school.
Yeah.
Wow, throwback.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I I guess actually now that I'm thinking about it, in high school I did do a commedia dell'arte play, which is technically clowning.
Wow.
So I suppose not my first foray into the specific comedic arts. But yeah, no, it was such a rad experience.
Yeah.
They were really intense about auditioning. Most of our theater program, for better and often worse, was not audition based. So it was basically like anybody could sign up. But the improv team that was also a class.
Exclusive.
Yes.
Okay.
You had to audition.
Wow.
And so, 100+ students signed up to audition, and there were only a handful of spots. And so I got on the team, and I was like, wow, I'm a god. And then we got to learn from Keisha Zoller, who does stuff with UCB, the Black Lady Sketch Show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. She's amazing. And so it would be I can't remember if we met, how many times a week we met.
I mean, for a weekly show, like, that's insane.
I know. I can't even trust myself. So now I am like, wow, did we do a weekly show?
They just feel weekly. Yeah. It's improv and it's all consuming.
Well, now I'm gonna phone a friend. I'm gonna phone a friend via text message.
It's like, hey, by the way, you're on the pod.
Literally.
Weekly sketch show? Because that was on my improv team. We did like one every semester, and that was more than enough for us to try to kill each other over. Like, I went and looked it up. I have still a document where I tracked attendance, because I was the one who started our improv team, and it was just like a bunch of shitty theater kids, so none of us took it seriously. So I found our spreadsheet like, hey, if you don't show up to half the practices, you can't be in the show.
Oh my, we were wicked intense, because our so the year before I got on the team, they ended up winning a bunch of awards.
Oh, okay.
Yes, at whatever, like, collegiate level improv.
The Oscars.
Championship. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. At the Oscars. TM. And so they were like very intense about it. We had class multiple times a week. And you had to be dedicated. They were very intense about attendance, but because there was so much hullabaloo about the whole thing, we didn't have anyone who was on the team that wasn't like, I take comedy too seriously.
Okay.
You know?
It was just all a good time all around.
Yes.
So if you were not taking it that seriously, would you say that your sort of next opportunity after Feral Christine, the play you wrote called Love Me Tender, which I think is about marrying a dog, just based on the flyer.
Literally obsessed, not at all about marrying a dog, but love
can you see
like
where I got there?
Yeah, I can. It really is giving. You are cordially invited.
Thumbs are wasted on people. I'm just saying.
So Love Me Tender is actually I went to the National Theater Institute at the Eugene O'Neill Theater Center, and that was the first time that I studied playwriting. It was a really interdisciplinary program, so it was also my first opportunity to do directing.
Oh wow.
Which has like really served me in my life.
See.
And so I began this play that was not that one. It was a different one called R.I.P. Gramps.
Okay.
That one, and that ended up having like a small production at my school. I then went back and took a playwriting class where I wrote Love Me Tender, which was about a girl who is extremely isolated in her apartment, and the only person who she is friends with is her dog.
And this was a good 2 years before COVID. So Nostradamus.
Yeah, exactly. But then I did actually revamp the play for COVID once it had happened.
There we
go. Like, okay.
Wow.
You're Rasputin.
We're post Feral Christine into playwriting.
Yes. So Feral, I'm still on Feral Christine this whole time. Yes, so it is I got on Feral Christine my sophomore year, and then I was on it until my senior year.
Got it.
And so for Love Me Tender, I ended up writing this play, and then one of my connections from NTI hit me up before I graduated and was like, hey, I have an opportunity. I have some, producer who is giving me the opportunity to put on a play, and I remembered that play of yours, and if you're interested, I would love to do it.
Bring it back.
I know. So we ended up at the Wild Project Theater in New York, putting on my play, and it was an unbelievable experience.
So then, did that take you to New York and you stayed there for a while? Because I saw you were doing stand-up at the Broadway Comedy Club in like 2019.
Yes. So basically, the Sarah Lawrence is in Bronxville, which is, you know, like a little 45-minute drive on the. That's not what trains do. I mean, I suppose it is. But drive on the train.
A train drive.
A train drive, if you will. And the college, of course, will swear it's 30.
Right.
Yeah, right. And so I moved. The first summer I lived in New York was in between my junior and senior year summer.
So like 2017.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I was, you know, like a disaster, clinically, and so I wasn't really taking names and
doing shit.
Yeah.
You weren't living concrete jungle, wet green tomato.
No, I was not. I was eating pints of Ben and Jerry's for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Yeah, living on an air mattress in an apartment that did not have air conditioning. Yeah. So I had 5 fans. Big guy.
And now you have 6.
Exactly. And so, oh my God, I meant fans like.
I know.
Oh!
Played it on. See,
oh!
Sorry. Scared the shit out of the cat.
I know. The cat is like, get it together.
God damn it.
But yeah, so I had that was the first summer, and then after college, when I graduated, I moved to the city with some friends, and so my senior year, they had a class called Comedy Workshop that often sort of was frequented by many of the same people who were in. The class was called Lampoon, but our team was called Feral Christine, because Lampoon was the team that had won all of the awards. So when that team, you know, when they kind of that was the one year, and when all of them graduated, they were like, "That's our thing.
We're taking it with us.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's the ladder, bitches."
Yeah. Literally. They were like, "You're not going to call your whack ass selves Feral Christine, not on our name."
TM.
Exactly. So, so Lampoon the class and Comedy Workshop sort of went hand in hand a lot. And it was during Comedy Workshop that we actually spent the last half of the class studying stand-up comedy. And learning as a group how to write a set. And you know, doing it like really intense workshop style. Which was so cool, and it was one of the most like meaningful experiences I've ever had. And also it was taught by Christine Farrell, who is a comedian. Yes, Farrell Christine.
Wait a second. This is all coming together.
It's all coming together.
Wait a second.
Christine Farrell, who has done many things, but I most recently saw on an episode of Law and Order as a medical examiner. Exactly.
I would die happy.
I know. That is like, I'm sure, her least impressive credit, but it is the one that is at the top of my mind.
Listen, bum.
Bum. I think that she was like a really incredible teacher. Nobody is perfect, and she had her flaws. But what I will say about that class is we had folks in there who, you know, in no possible iteration of the future were they meant to be stand-up comedians.
It's not for everyone.
It's not for everyone.
I'm a big believer that everyone should do art. And I think it's really important to be bad at art, because the most like human thing you can do is create. And that's why it's really fucking important to have space for like open mics and like local theater, and like, because it feels good to create no matter how good the quality is. However, maybe not every act of creation is for everybody.
It's true. It is true. But what I will say about this class, right, is that while there were definitely some people in there where I was like, this is wild that you have chosen this path forward for yourself, every person, save for one who like that, but it was on him because he didn't come to class and all that stuff. But every person who actually showed up to the class and engaged with the work during our final, you know, showcase or whatever, every single person had a tight 5 that was like workable, or that as an audience member watching it, you were like, damn, like this is like the best that you could have done.
This is really your final form.
Yes!
As best as you're gonna be, versus like the more organic feral version of that was where you go to an open mic. It's like, I can do this.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm the star. I don't need anyone to tell me what to do. I'm just gonna read off my phone for 5 minutes.
But I think was also really interesting because it taught us how to edit jokes.
Yes.
And how to think about jokes and how to think about stand-up comedy as like a structured art
format. Yeah.
And I think that it saved me years, because the first stand-up comedy I had written was like 2 years before that. And okay. At the time I was like, killed it. And yeah, but then, you know, when I reread it back several years later, I was like, oh my god. It's like a horror.
I was just telling Andy, I found my like college open mic set on a Google Doc from years ago. It's just all about SpongeBob and World War II for some reason. Do not ask me why.
Oh my god, obsessed. But you have like the spectrum of 5-year-old boy and his dad. Like all in one.
Leave me alone. I'm not wearing this child's shirt for nothing. But yeah, you cannot tell like a college kid shit. Their set is the best set that's ever happened. And sometimes it is, but they need someone to tell them.
It's so true. But I think that, you know, one of the things that I was really saved from was having that learning curve of there is a difference between being funny when you tell your friends stories and writing jokes.
Yeah, because it's a skill set.
Exactly. Yeah. And that like joke editing is such an important part of getting better. And like I see so many folks at open mics who use that time to do the exact same jokes that they've been doing
for years.
Right, and that aren't getting an actually good response. Exactly. And they're not getting better. And it kind of makes open mics an interesting, you know, creative exercise though, because I just am sitting back there like, come here, let me rewrite it for you.
Like, please, let me help you. I love to be at a show be like, I do that. I wouldn't do it like that.
Yes.
Let me help you. Like, no.
Yeah.
No. I'm going to help myself first. And we'll talk about helping others a bit later in the show. But so you're in New York. You're there from like 2018 through about 2020. You come back to the DMV.
No, 2019.
2019. So you left before because I knew you were back in Virginia being a news courier for.
Was I? That's a word. Boy, was I. Lived a life.
Amen. And so I was curious, like, where that gap was, because you were doing like a bit of stand up there, Broadway Comedy Club, and then you came back to the DMV.
Yes.
You were in Virginia for 2019 through 2022.
Since I was like 13 years old, I have struggled with a lot of health issues, and a lot of those health issues have been chronic, and I think for, you know, for various reasons and because of various factors, including the fact that I was young, the fact that I have a vagina, and the fact that that I think a lot of chronic illnesses are
underappreciated, underrepresented, and undertreated.
Understood.
In general, it's under.
Yeah, they are just under the rug. And so because of that, I had a really horrible time with medical care. Yeah. And my parents, God bless them, are like very kind of walk it off, deal with it people. My mom, and they took me to doctors, but I think at a certain point on your, you know, 5th trip with your child to the ER that's lasted 8 hours, you're like, fuck it.
Where the doctors can't do shit because they don't know what they're talking about. Yeah, exactly.
They're like, we could do this for free at home.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just kind of tried to like muscle through.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And so in, you know, even in that stand-up comedy class that I did, the comedy workshop, I closed out the sets. I was one of the best people, if not the best person in the class, but I got a C in the class for attendance. Yeah. I was in bed more than half the days of the year. Yeah. From like 14 to honestly like 25.
Yeah.
And it was like a really big challenge that obviously impacted everything, impacted my quality of life.
Yeah.
Impacted my grades throughout school. And so when I moved to New York after college, I had all of these like, you know, dreams of I was gonna like be audition for Broadway shows, and I was gonna take the comedy scene by storm. Exactly. And all of this stuff. And then first of all, I mean, New York, you cannot find a less accessible city to save your fucking life. And so again, like it just kind of, the cycle was repeating itself, and I was stuck in bed again. But I think living in New York, so many of the things that make it worth it, like, weren't accessible to me.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I was even living in Baltimore during COVID, and I was like, do I just leave? Because I'm paying so much money where everything is closed. I can't go anywhere. I cannot do anything. I cannot see anybody. And it's hard to, like, literally see it outside your window and being like, I'm in the biggest city in the world, want to do all the biggest things, and I just can't. It's not accessible.
Yeah. And I think, you know, being in the city itself, I think also definitely had a negative impact on my health. So I was doing some stuff. The Broadway Comedy Club, they do a queer comedy festival.
They do. Drew Tessier.
Yes.
Drew.
And yes. And so I did that festival twice. The first time I did quite well, and the second time it was the first real thing I had did post-COVID.
Okay.
And
okay.
Yeah, and that was a bold choice because I was unwell and I made a suicide joke that didn't land. And
I love when they go
blacklisted.
And everyone's like, ooh, and it's like, that's not the answer I wanted. That's not the noise I wanted you to make.
I was like, ha 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 ha.
It's funny, right? It's funny.
People were like, this is no longer the brand. This is no longer the aesthetique. But yeah, so I was doing some stuff at the Broadway Comedy Club. I was going to some open mics. But of course, the real thing about comedy is you have to go to open mics.
It's like
regularly.
The grind, the rigorous, the rigmarole.
And even more than that, just getting comfortable with the jokes and getting comfortable enough at open mics where it's not precious anymore.
Exactly. Where if it's a numbers game, like you cannot have it be every set has to be perfect. You have to have it be 90% of your sets are shit or just fine.
Right.
5% are shit and 5% are why you're still alive.
It's true. And it is. And that's what made it so hard because my health was so bad that I was only able to get out to mics once every month to a couple of months.
Exactly.
So every time I signed up for a tight 5 at an open mic, I first of all always ran the light. Woof. They hated it. Don't run the mic, kids. Don't run the light. But yeah, and then I also was just like, this is my chance.
This is my chance. It's so limited.
Yes. And so I was so precious about everything. I had so much anxiety about telling my jokes. It just sucked. And then my health ended up getting so bad that I like couldn't function as a person, an adult living. I was living with roommates, but even I like couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So I had to come home. I lived in DC. That's where I was born, and I saw this one doctor that fused Eastern and Western medicine, and she did not take insurance, and it was $400 per appointment. Did not see her again.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, was it worth it? Did it work? Okay, good.
It was. I think I actually did manage to see her one other time, but I ended up finding out not everything, but enough. Apparently I had Lyme's disease.
Oh, yes.
That had never been treated that I think was like really fucking me up.
It's incredibly chronic. It'll wreck you. And people don't realize how severe it is.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And like, I think whether it is because of that or in, oh my God, there's a scientific word and I would sound so smart if I remembered it, but I don't.
Fucked up shit. Fucked up body shit.
Right. But I don't know if it was happening at the same time as, or, you know, as a result of, but I had a lot of like stomach issues, a lot of hormonal shit, a lot of like
is it
joint
endometriosis
issue. They thought so for a while, but no. It's a PMDD is one of the things that we know so far. Yeah. Yeah, so I end up, you know, finally like getting some steps towards like getting, you know, my life a little bit together, and then COVID.
Boom, boom.
Literally, exactly. I was like, no. And so I'm living in my house with my childhood home. And I was going to say ancestral, but I don't think it counts as ancestral if your ancestors are your mom and your dad.
No, I don't think when they talk about calling on the ancestors, I don't think they mean like, hey, mom.
Yeah, literally.
Gotta come home this weekend.
So I'm living in my house with my mom and my dad and my little brother. And we are all slowly descending into madness. And I was like, I cannot live the rest of my numbered days with 3 people who don't think I'm funny or charming. There's
a whole world out there of that.
Exactly. So I ended up having a friend who was going to VT's creative writing program. And they were like, hey, I have like this little house down there that I'm renting with some folks, and we need somebody. There's like a basement room available, essentially. And of course, I'm coming from New York, where I'm like, oh, basement room. Bitch, it was beautiful. It was huge. There were windows everywhere because it was on a hill. I know.
Oh, okay.
And there's a little bathroom down there.
No,
I know.
Okay.
I'm like,
living large.
Literally. So I ended up moving down there.
Mm-hmm.
I never got unemployment during COVID because I had started a new job like a month or 2 months before it had happened.
Yeah.
And so I was living down there, and I had some savings, but I was like, that's not
gonna last.
This is not working out.
That's not it.
I end up, going online to try to find a job, a local job. And the not the New York Times, wow. Elevating myself. Was like, we are in need of newspaper delivery people. And I was like, great. So I send them a little thing on Indeed. I then get a message back, from one of the like strange email addresses that's just like letters and numbers, and you're like, perfect.
At hotmail.com.
Yeah. And then they were like, because I was like, hey, I'd love to do this. And they were like, great, absolutely. Send us your resume. I did. And they were like, okay, perfect. You're going to start training tonight at 3 a.m. Mm-hmm. Meet me at this location. Mm-hmm. It's a warehouse. I was like, I'm going to die. And then I was like, but I do need this job.
I need
literally. So then I go there. I'm in my car. She's in her car. And I was like, again, it's like 2020. It's 2020.
Yeah.
November, December.
Okay.
And so everything is still horrifying. Everything is still horrifying now.
It's still horrifying in the classic way.
Yes, exactly.
Old style.
Horrifying in the we have no information.
No, we're all scared.
Yeah, exactly. And so we pull up there to this sus ass like warehouse storage locker type situation, and I was like, perfect.
This is it.
And I was like, all right, great. What's gonna happen is she wants to show me her route, so I'm gonna drive behind her and see what's going on. So I get out of my car and I was like, hey, and she was like, get in to her car. I don't know this woman.
You don't know this woman.
No, for sure.
It's COVID.
Literally.
You're in a enclosed space with this person.
3 a.m.
You're in a warehouse.
And so I was like, oh, I didn't know I was going to get in your car. And then she was like, well, then how are you supposed to see what to do? And I was like, oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Have you had a COVID test recently? And then she laughed in my face and said, get in. And I was like, oh my God. So I just rolled my window down all the way and was like, trying, and I'm like texting my roommates, and I was like,
this is quarantine.
I was like, I'm so sorry. I don't know what to do. I'm
currently exposed.
No, exactly. So we like drive around, and then we get to the part of the warehouse where they actually, like have people distributing the papers where you get your stuff. And this old Appalachian lady just went, like, this woman had been like, this is Kenny. And then the old Appalachian lady looked at me and was like, don't worry, we have all types here. I know. And I was like, what? Do you think I'm a Democrat, or do you know I'm gay?
When I fucking tell you, this is a full tangent. I'm doing side work at the I'm gonna bleep this out.
Love.
It's so well paying, and it's insane. There are rooms I cannot go into because of the secrets, and code check guy now.
Oh!
And it's good tipped money. But they booked me for this. It was someone who I used to do improv with, and she posted on Facebook like, I need people for code check. I'm like, cool. She's like, it's let me Google that. I'm worried. And she's like, oh no, it's totally cool. You just have to be a man or identify as one. And she looked me dead in the eyes when she said that. I'm like, thank you.
I'm obsessed.
And she's like, and you just have to believe in a god. And I'm like, okay, well, I've got like one of those kind of covered maybe. Are you still gonna pay me? So I love when they qualify.
I know, I'm obsessed. She was like, listen. Okay, we hate women, but we are trans inclusive.
We are so trans inclusive. Just one way, not the other. But I'm sorry to interrupt. I had to share that. So,
obsessed, please keep me
Appalachian lady, they take all kinds.
They take all kinds. Okay, we have all kinds here. So so I ended up working that job, but it was one of the most intense jobs I've ever had. It was 7 days a week at 3. Like, you had to pick up your stuff between midnight and 3 a.m. every day.
Yeah.
You got no days off aside from like Thanksgiving and Christmas. if you missed a day of work, you had to pay them $100 flat. If you had to like call out, you had to find someone to run your route. But the routes aren't, it's not like, okay, everybody on this street or whatever. No. It's like random houses.
And people who subscribe to the newsletter. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And mine was sort of all over the place. So sometimes, you know, if I was gone, like my boss would run it for me.
Yeah.
But if somebody marks that they didn't receive their newspaper, even if it's not your fault, like if you throw it, but the wind takes it away, whatever. Yeah. You get 25 cents off your pay. And so if you do have somebody sub for you, but they fuck it up, you're getting like doxed in your pay left and right. It was so fucking crazy. So eventually I was like, absolutely the fuck not. But I was like, you know what I have to do? Make it to Christmas. Because I will be getting those Christmas tips.
There we go.
I will get those Christmas tips. So I then ended up quitting that job.
Okay.
And I then attempted to teach children to read online, but when asked during a discussion, and okay, we had to do these like dumb things where we had to like role play conversations, and I was like, okay, love a role play. Mm-hmm. But they asked me a question about Tuck Everlasting.
Okay.
And they were like, the man in yellow, what does he symbolize, do you think? And I said, am I answering as me or am I answering as a child? Oh. And then they were like, no, answer as you. And I was like, capitalism.
Oh. Man, oh, let's talk about it.
Yeah, and then I like went on a whole little what I thought was
very
insightful and well cited argument. But they were like, no. Also, I have like ADD and they hated that about me. Yeah. I just have a really hard time pretending that your bullshit is important. That's like which is really what it is.
An amazing skill to not have while existing in stand-up. I feel like that's all it is pretending each other's bullshit is important. You're doing amazing, sweetie. Keep talking about how much you hate your wife. Good job.
Right. I won't. There is. I won't. I can't. But yeah, so I then, I didn't end up getting that job. They were like, we don't think you're a good fit. And I was like, that's probably fair. And then I found at VT, they have a like stand-up comedy club or whatever.
Okay.
And I was so desperate to be doing stuff.
Something, yeah.
In 2021 when like the vaccines had come out. So it was like, okay, we can, like, it's still bad, but
we're kind of out here. The cicadas are coming. Like, things
right.
are wild. Yeah.
But there is like hope. This was like later in the year. So I find this group and I was like, hey, I do not go to your school. I am just a random adult. At this point, I am working at Domino's as a delivery driver. Can I be a weird adult in your club? And then they were like, yes.
That's amazing.
I know. I think honestly it was because they probably needed girls.
Yeah, that sounds like college comedy.
100%. The first meeting, there is a tornado warning. I disregard it. I go to the campus anyway. We have to have our meeting in the hallway because all of the tornado alarms are going off. Would I risk my life to attend that meeting knowing what it was? No. But at that moment, I was like, the arts, anything for the arts.
We have to.
We must. And so I, So
you're doing comedy VT. This is like 2021, and then.
Well, I did one show. I did one show with them, and those stupid little college boys really before the show tried to be like, yeah, actually, can I see your set?
What?
Just to make sure it's okay.
Hey, you do it. Do it right now.
No, deadass. I was like, no, they wanted to read it off of a piece of paper. Yeah. And then he said it was because one time they had somebody who said some, like, crazy, like, things about their disabled brother or something.
And I get wanting to vet your comics, but maybe they should have done that beforehand.
No, 100%.
Much earlier?
Like, right. Like, not here, not now. And, then... so, he, like, reads my thing, and then he was like... Yeah, just a quick note, when you say, like, hell fucking yeah, like, I don't think you should do that because it's, like, excessively profane and it, like, makes the joke weaker. And I was like, you dumb cunt, you don't know me and you do not know how I speak, okay? I was like, I said it with my eyes, but not with my mouth. With my mouth, I was like, and then I ignored him, and then I got up on stage, and I absolutely fucking crushed. And him and all of his other stupid little boys were just as bad bad as I thought they were. And it was so gratifying. And I was like, you know what, girl, today feminism wins.
We did it.
Feminism
we did
wins.
it. Susan B. Anthony, we did it for you. So, then how did you get from there to Baltimore? Because I ask always because, like, I'm not a Baltimore native. I'm a transplant. I grew up in Maryland, but I'm not from here. And people always have, like, a weird adjustment period coming here.
Yeah.
They, like, either stick it out and they really get into it and it becomes, like, half of their personality. Or they're here for 6 months. They're like, I don't like it here. I want to go.
So I ended up the like housing situation I've been a part of in Blacksburg started off utopic and then of course like descended into dystopia. Yeah, absolutely. You know, like two people start fucking and it's over. Oh, so yeah. So I was like, all right, I gotta go. And right at the tail end of my time in Blacksburg, I sat down with this person who I'd made friends with because I was like desperate for queer community. Mm-hmm. And so I saw her walking her dog and I was like, you are at least bisexual. So I ran out of my house.
Please help.
Literally, in a towel, wearing underwear, being like, hello, are you gay? And she was like, yes. So we were like meeting up to chat and she basically was like, yeah, this is just the kind of place where you get stuck. Like, I moved here for what I thought was going to be a year 10 years ago and look at me, I'm still here and you're going to get stuck here too. And I was out within the week, bitch. I was like, thank you, God. There is nothing like someone telling me I won't do something to make me do it.
She saved you, but she also, did. Oh my God.
No, I know. I'm really grateful to her. Yeah. But so I ended up getting a job in DC and I was like through a friend from back home and I was like, great, I will move in with my parents. Like I'll crash with my parents until I can find a place to live in DC. Yeah. And as it turns out, I cannot afford to live in DC. No. And so I actually, a really beloved friend of mine who I'd met in Blacksburg actually was living in Baltimore with my uncle. Okay. And not with my uncle. He owned the house, basically.
Renting from your uncle, yeah.
Yes. So he is actually... And so he, actually, I don't know what the ethics are of me talking because he's a client. This was supposed to be his, like, you know, way, but then I think I moved in and I really ruined it.
It was a whole thing. It's not the easiest.
But it's like he's not in Baltimore. He has his, like, little, like, escape.
Okay, so in Baltimore, this is, like, he's in secondary place.
Yes. Okay. So I'm trying to figure out how to, like, tell the story without, I don't know if I should say he's a...
We'll bleep it out.
Okay, oh,
he works at Trader Joe's.
Okay, perfect.
He has a mystery job.
Yes, he does. So she was staying at his place and I texted both of them and I was like, hey, can me and my horrible tiny dog come to live with you because I am not going to make it to 27 if I have to stay here. And they were like, yes, worst decision they ever made. So then I moved here. It was supposed to be very temporary. I was going to go to Western Massachusetts to live with a partner. Okay. Yeah, after this happened. Yeah. Thank God I didn't because we are no longer together.
Boom, boom, boom.
Did it end well? No. It was bad.
I almost moved to Delaware with a man to open a game shop.
Oh my God, honestly obsessed.
We were engaged. He lives down the street now. Hi, Sean.
Hi, Sean.
I saw him at the Giant the other day. We're doing great.
Love. Yeah. Okay. I did not see my ex at the Giant, and we are not well. There it is. But so... It was supposed to be really temporary. But like what I will say, right, is during quarantine, I had an absolute crisis about like, as I'm sure many people did, what does it mean to be an artist right now? And what happens if like the arts can't ever exist again?
If this never comes back. Right. This is just how things are forever.
Exactly. And so I remember saying to myself, I was like, if I ever get out of this shit, like I am going to go out every night. I am going to never not perform. And I am going to like seize the motherfucking day. So I got here. Yeah. And I was really surprised. I had no idea that there was any sort of performing arts scene here. And then I found open mics. So I start like finding mics and going to them.
Yes.
And just like trying it out, and lo and behold, I am still funny. And
still there.
Yeah,
after all this time.
Exactly, after all this time. I am after like the 3 months since I did my last Blacksburg set, I was like, what? So, but yeah, so I start doing all these open mics.
Yeah.
And doing what I couldn't do in New York because I wasn't well enough. Like being able to actually do that whack ass grind. Yes. Yeah. Work on my jokes. Work on my jokes. Work on my jokes. And I started, like meeting more people. Anytime I saw a mic, I was like, I will hit that up.
I'm here. Let's go.
Which was really sick because I think that a lot of people end up, finding like one space that they feel comfortable in. Yeah. And then that is like the only place that they'll go. But something that really served me is I was in so many different spaces with so many different people. And I think then that really set me up for success when I was, then as a producer, yes. Because it meant that I had so many more connections with so many different folks. Yeah, I kind of started to get booked and get picked up more, and I this partner who I was an idiot and was thinking about moving in with actually hadn't been speaking to me for a couple of months, and then they circled back in about that, and I was like, hey, yeah, cool, I actually have built
a life
here.
Yeah, this is kind of like where I'm at, and right, these roots,
and it feels like we broke up.
Yeah, because I haven't heard from you in months.
Right, they were like, I've been busy, but also moving into a new house with my other partner. Yeah.
God. I love queer people. I love queer people so much.
Literally obsessed. Obsessed with my own horrors. But yeah, so I ended up staying here, and just like everything just kind of went from there. I love this city.
I love it too.
I love this city so fucking much. But I will say, when I first moved here, I knew one trans comedian.
Yeah.
Who lived here, and I was like, incredible.
Was it Violet?
No.
Really?
And no. Just listen, the story will make sense.
Okay.
So I knew one trans comedian who I'd been on like a Zoom show with, RIP, during COVID, and I hit them up and I was like, hey, I would love to meet up and like chat about the comedy scene here, all this stuff.
Yeah.
They were like, totally. We met up, and then they were like, queer comedy doesn't have an audience here. It doesn't exist. It will never exist. Give up. Yeah. And then I was like, guess I'll go to guess I'll just listen to people tell rape jokes and then get up there to be like, and I'm also funny.
Jeez, that's wild too, because I started doing comedy here in 2019 at an establishment that was produced and booked by a queer person, doing lip sync battles and weird like arm wrestling shit and like queer stuff. Like, I'm not sure there's always like the most diverse or enthusiastic audience, but I like before that never felt that there was not an audience for queer comedy here. But also, I'm delusional. I think anywhere I am, there's an audience for me.
Well, I mean, I think that what I have proven for myself is that like that is true.
Exactly.
And that I think like it can be really, complicated.
Yeah.
When talking about things like this, because obviously what had happened to this person is like, what I will say is, being a queer comedian in this city and being a comedian that,
yeah, is not just some dude.
Yeah. It can be really challenging.
It will burn you the fuck out.
Yeah, and I think that like that challenge sort of like spans the gamut.
Yeah.
And I think also this was a trans femme person who doesn't have the like even with me, I think sometimes I actually don't know if this is true. I don't know if sometimes people are nicer to me than they would be otherwise because they think I'm hot or because they're scared of me.
It's always a weird thing where I'm just like, okay, what are you coming to me with now?
How
are you interacting with me? And is it like the biases that you have against me or for me? Like, yeah, because you never really know, especially like as a comic that's not a man, because like there's the boys club and how like straight men talk to me. It's very different, even though I feel a lot more connected to like non-male comics than I do these assholes who come up and talk to me.
Yeah, and I think like there are definitely like, I think something that people don't talk about enough, in my personal opinion, is not just how tough it can be to overcome the, like, queer people aren't funny or women aren't funny. Yeah. But also how, in order to be, like, a queer person or a woman in these spaces, you have to sit there
and play the game
and not just listen to other people's fucked up jokes, but you have to listen to the audience laugh at them.
React to it.
And that is, like, a really soul-crushing experience, or it can be. And, like, I remember there was this dude who I did open mics with, and what I mean is I did open mics and then to my chagrin he would be there, who I called Gay Rape Holocaust Joke. And yeah, I have never been 5 minutes. I didn't know how much damage could be done.
And he figured out how to excruciate every fucking second of that.
No, abso-fucking-lutely. And so I think that, like, hearing both that the audiences that love it and hearing the comedians that love it and seeing as all of these shitty dudes just book each other again and again. And as I did start to get better, it was really infuriating because I would go to open mics with these men. They would watch me kill it.
Yeah.
And never book me.
They treat you like shit because they still have to book their same poor friends.
Exactly. And so, like, on the one hand, that was devastating. And, like, as a queer person who had come to the city full of, like, love and hope, it would have been really incredible to have that conversation go differently. But I also do, you know, with what I know now, I am like, I do hear how, depending on, like, what your experiences were, how you could just be like, dude, fuck it, like, it's not worth it.
No, it's not for everybody. It takes a special level of delusion and madness, but also security and privilege to be able to engage in these things. Like, I'm never going to tell somebody, no, just keep at it. Just keep going to these things that make you feel like shit. Like, you're the only person in that room that feels like this isn't funny. I'm never going to tell someone to keep it up because it's not going to get better by itself. You don't get numb to these things. You just have to find the spaces that work for you in a way that makes it still worth it. It's like this weird calculus where it's just like, okay, I have to listen to this man talk about how much he wants to hit his wife. Was his wife in the room? She drove him here, while still feeling like this is still worth the skin in the game. And it's like this awful calculus that feels like it applies to every queer person existing in this world. It's so much more apparent when it's entertainment. And it's like, okay, not only are they thinking I'm nothing, they're laughing at that fact. Yeah. They think it's funny that I'm nothing.
For the record, I have never seen a single one of those motherfuckers have a wife that comes to their shit. I've never known.
It was wild because they were sitting next to each other the entire time. I'm like, wait, that's her that he's talking about right now. Correct?
Yeah.
Awful. Yeah.
Who was it?
I don't even remember. I'd never seen him before. It was in DC, thankfully. That's it. I have tired so much of going to mics in this city. Also, I work a job and I have other things, and the idea of, like, doing the grind while also, like, okay, I have to pay my bills still and go out. Like, I need to be strategic about the places, because if I just keep going to the places that'll put me up at the end of the show, where it's going to go bad anyway, regardless of how good I am doing, it's the calculus. You have to think strategically, because you can't go every night of the week.
Yeah.
It's just not feasible. I'm 30.
I'm tired.
You come to my house. I wasn't gonna go anywhere. So for a hard pivot, you were here for a few years, and then Dickless was born. Was Dickless born here?
So not really.
Okay.
Dickless. So I had wanted to do drag since college.
Yeah.
But I think that I really hadn't quite known how to do this. I had a very bizarre, as a kind of side tangent, like, relationship with music and dancing when I was younger, because I think that I dissociated so much from my body so much of the time that I, like, it was very hard for me to connect to music in the way that I am able to now, and in the way that it, like, brings me so much joy, because it required me to be embodied in a way that was hard. And I think also I would panic so much because I wanted to be good at the singing or the dancing. So then I would be bad at the singing and the dancing.
And then it's like, oh no.
Exactly. And then I was like, I hate you. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll just watch a lot of shows a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And
watch
tell
other
jokes.
people do it.
Yes, exactly. And so when I started to, like, feel better. And also with all of the time that I had in quarantine, I think that I really worked on my relationship both with music and with my body.
Okay.
In a way that served me really well.
Yeah.
But the first time that I did drag was the first time I dragged my face was in quarantine.
Okay.
I just kind of did it as a silly little something. And then, of course, my mom was like, ew, what are you doing? And then I tried to show her the video that I thought was very cute and clever.
Okay.
Yeah. It wasn't even Dickolas. It was just...
Dickolas. It was just Kenny.
He was just Kenny. But I was, like, absurdist, and I think involved vegetables.
Okay.
It was... Yeah, it wasn't for her.
Not the target audience.
Not the target audience. And then I dragged my face for Halloween in 2020. But it wasn't until I was living here, I found an open stage for drag performers.
Right.
In DC at Dick Bar.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It was actually one of the things that Dramedy was kind of inspired by because it was like signups were open for one day. They usually had like 40 people sign up.
Yeah.
It would either start 10 minutes later, an hour early, depending on how drunk the host was when she showed up. I know, love. And then you would go. And of course, I was always at the end of the show. There were always about 3 people in the audience. I think that it took me so long to make more than $5 doing drag. But it was really amazing. Yeah. And it was an opportunity for me to connect with other drag performers, to like meet people and to hone, to like kind of find my voice. I then ended up doing this, show for like alternative comedy in DC.
Okay.
And I ended up doing my first ever sort of like long form like drag concept act in which Dickolas was auditioning to be like part of a movie. It was really crazy, but I think that it actually went like quite well. But Dickolas really sort of became a cemented character and like really grew and was developed with Hen House.
Yeah.
Because I got the opportunity to run Hen House doing drag and comedy at a time where my bookings for comedy were like pretty good.
Consistent, but not.
But nobody was booking me to do drag for the most part, aside from a few people in DC.
Yeah, because I've been in Baltimore for a long time and engaged in the drag scene, not as a performer, but as a fan and a friend. Like, because would you believe that the drag scene is dominated by gay men? Groundbreaking. So like I know the girls, but I also know the guys behind the girls, so I like interact and I see this like different facet of nightlife, and sometimes I work with them just as a host and as a stand-up. But before, like probably recently, very recently, there was not any space for like non-gay men in that world. Like there was Bambi Galore, who was a cis woman who, or maybe not so much, but she moved on to New York a long time ago, and beyond that, Baltimore has the same problem with drag that it does for comedy and other art, that if you get good enough at it, you leave. You go to New York, you go to DC, and for a art form that is so based on like generations and teaching and mentorship like drag is, it's really hard to find like an in-roots community like that. So it makes a ton of sense that you were not getting a ton of drag bookings because they didn't know what the fuck they were doing, and that's obvious from someone on the outside.
Yeah, and I think also just, you know, like not necessarily knowing how to like connect with the drag, especially like the drag queen community, and especially as a king, and especially as a young king,
and a king
who, like,
doing comedy stuff as well.
Yes,
and not just like shablam flip. I'm beautiful.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. And so I ended up, you know, like being the primary person booking Dickolas.
Yeah.
But it was through doing Hen House and through me hosting as Dickolas that I really was able to like find out who he was and sort of develop the like lore of Dickolas, or establish some of my, you know, like the numbers that I think are like quintessential Dickolas.
Yeah.
And so that really changed the game.
That changed the game. So, speaking of Hen House, we've been talking about her a lot. I think we can take a break, and then we will get into the hen house of it all. The baby, the dream, the icon.
The baby, the dream, the icon.
We'll be right back. Hey everybody, and welcome to The Break. This is the part of the show where we get to talk about upcoming events at our host venue, the Club Car, as well as talk about our lineup for the upcoming Laugh Track show. This week at the Club Car, you can find them open on Thursday for cocktail hour. You can find them open on Friday, March 14th for the Station North Art Walk. Elijah Davis is our featured gallery artist this month, and they will be at the Late Night Art Market this Friday, 5 p.m. to late. March 15th is Saturday, 9:30 p.m. is DJ Shy Boy with the drag show hosted by the one and only Stelia Mans at 10:30 p.m. Free before 10, $5 after 10. And then Sunday, it's Sunday service with Tech Metropolitan featuring DJ 7OE and DJ Steve Shimmer. Not to be missed, $5. Great shows all around. And of course, we cannot forget Laugh Tracks, March 29th. That is starring Taranika Anand, Lucas Craig, Megan Graves, myself, Xavier Montez, and they, them, Ty, making their Laugh Tracks return. So you can find all the information on the Club Car Baltimore Instagram page. Follow them there to find all kinds of stuff coming to a bar near you. And we are back with our incredible guest, Kenny Rooster, who is the showrunner, host, progenitor, maitre d', a person in charge of legal guardian of Hen House. So Hen House started in like 2023 March, right?
Yeah, so it started February 2023.
Got
yes.
It. Okay. So for those who do not know and think we're talking about chickens, what is Hen House?
Hen House is a variety show.
Okay.
It started as a primarily stand-up comedy show that had drag elements. So I think that actually our first ever Hen House cast was, it was fucking deranged. I think that it must have been 12 people. I know. 9 of whom were comedians and 3 of whom were drag performers. I honestly think it might have been more than that. Like, it was actually, someone needed to stop me.
A marathon show. Oh, no.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's been developing over it turned 2 last month.
Yeah, the last 2 years.
So it's been developing over 2 months. Nope, that's not true. It has been developing over 2 years. And in those 2 years, it really has become more of a variety show.
Yeah.
I think that throughout those 2 years, I was like playing with form. Sometimes I wanted to play, and sometimes God wanted me to play because he was like, "Hey, what are you gonna do now that 4 people have dropped out of the show
on the same day, 12 hours before the show?"
And you're like, oh my God! If it's 12 hours before, I'm feeling blessed. Okay, people love to hit me with that 30 minutes out.
I'm like, I'm on the way.
Might be.
Sorry.
So I was experimenting with form, and like the whole conceit of the show is I was like, as a comedian, one of the worst things is when the person before you bombs so hard
that you just spend the time picking up their pieces.
Yes. Yeah. That you just kind of have to spend your time doing CPR on the audience. And that's, that's that. So I was like, drag is so incredible because it has this way of like lifting up the energy of the room. It changes the energy of the space. And so I thought, wow, it would really serve the comedians to have that break, to have that thing that happens that like resets the room.
Yeah.
Should you need it, which obviously ideally you wouldn't want to have to need it, but
stuff happens.
Right, exactly. And so that is how it started. It's like a stand-up show, and the drag was kind of a tool to help the comedians.
Yeah.
But then as I, sort of went on with it, it then kind of became half stand-up comedy, half drag.
Yeah.
I then discovered burlesque. Why? Because I love titties.
Listen.
Okay? I know. I was like, for art? Oh, yes.
We'll whip them out.
Yeah. Ratata. And so I started having burlesque on the show.
Yeah.
And then I fell in love with burlesque. I was like, I am obsessed with this. And so I remember, you know, one day, I think it was probably the third or fourth show I had burlesque at. And, oh, another important thing about Hen House, back when it was just a stand-up comedy show that had drag, I believe it was my second Hen House show, actually. I still performed. Oh my god, I've done a horrible job of explaining what Hen House is. Okay. I'm realizing okay. Hen House, fundamentally, is a show that is hosted by Kenny Rooster and Nicolas Cage. Who, of course, are both me. I had an interviewer once be like, "What's it like working with Nicolas Cage?" And I was like, "Ugh, horrible.
He's the worst.
Yeah, exactly.
Never on
time." But so it's a show hosted by me and Nicolas Cage. It is a variety show. It has elements of comedy, drag, and burlesque. When it started, it was just a show hosted by me and Nicolas Cage that had comedy and drag. And so, initially, when I did my transformation in the middle to Kenny, I would still have a costume change.
Right.
Because now I do a long form, like, storytelling, improv, burlesque number. But back then, I would do a set, just like a regular comedy set. So I would have a Kenny costume. But one day, I think, like, quite early on in the process, I got backstage to do my quick change, and I could not find my clothes for Kenny. And I was like, fuck.
What do I do?
Exactly. And I couldn't go out in the clothes that Nicolas had been wearing.
Yeah.
But I had a corset backstage, and I had a bodysuit that was like a thong at the bottom. Nicolas had worn the bodysuit, but we hadn't seen the thong. So I was like, great. I put the thong on, the corset on, and then walked out in tennis shoes. And everybody was like, what? And I was like, I couldn't find my clothes. The audience loved it. Yeah. They thought it was hilarious, but it also just felt so right with the vibe of the show that from there on out, I would do the comedy in lingerie and heels. That is what I did. So I think that, like, that was also sort of the first inching towards burlesque that I was doing before burlesque was even really a part of it. And then I remember, you know, maybe 4 burlesque hen houses into the hen house evolution. I was like, I would fucking love to do this. I'm just gonna go for it. It was the Halloween show.
It's always Halloween.
It is always Halloween. And I did this crazy, like, I was both overly committed and undercommitted burlesque routine that, you know, was only about a minute and 30 seconds long. And then I did my comedy, and I was so nervous about it. And I was like, oh my God, it was so bad. It was so bad. And then the person backstage who I was talking to was like, no, it wasn't bad. I mean, it just kind of ended weirdly, but it wasn't bad. And I was like, wasn't bad.
Like, even bad burlesque is still magical.
Oh my God, it's so true.
Like, I remember coming up in the city, I used to go to burlesque all the time. It used to be hosted at Club Orpheus downtown, rest in peace. It was like a traveling troupe that no longer exists because the host and creator of it got called out for stealing black performers' numbers and never paying them. And it got called out in one of those town halls in 2020. Rest in peace, burlesque.
Dude.
But even, like, the worst numbers I ever saw there, which was just some twink gyrating to Troye Sivan, were still, like, magic. The idea of, like, taking a glove off in such, like, a sensuous way. Like, bad comedy can be really fucking bad.
Yes.
But bad burlesque is still exciting and engaging and, like, enchanting.
And that is what I have discovered, right? Is that, like, bad comedy will make someone hate you.
Yes.
But bad burlesque and drag, it's at least like, oh,
you're trying.
Look at you doing your thing. You know, like, well, you're having a good time.
Isn't that sweet?
No, exactly. You know, it's like you can only hate someone so much for being bad at getting naked. You know?
And speaking of maybe being not bad, but beginners at being naked, or beginners at drag, or even beginners at comedy, you also now host your own open stage, Dramedy.
Dramedy!
Which, big fan fan, love dramedy. I love that there's always 40 people there, and it just also feels good to be in a space with like diverse people, because whenever you do an open mic, it's the same like 10 or so people. You know? The same people hitting the circuit at the same time, but a lot of people there, like, I've never seen their drag number, they've never seen my set. My biggest critique is that it's a lot of young people, and I need them to make me stop feeling old. How has it been interacting with this like second generation of talent? Because now we're kind of at the point where we've been in Baltimore for a long enough time where it's like, oh, we're not the new kids. Oh, we've been doing this for a minute now. Oh, researching flyers for the show, even I see so many names that are just like gone now. I never see them anymore.
Yeah.
So what's it like in engaging with this like new upcoming crop, especially people who probably wouldn't do a standard open mic?
Yeah. So I think, you know, first of all, what I will say is that actually dramedy it depends on when you go.
Yeah.
Because we had a couple where there were like a good number of folks
yeah.
who were, you know, like older, like, you know,
established.
Yes, who were more established and who I would say were like 27 to 50 or whatever. But then of course you go to other ones and you're like, oh my god, children.
Gen Z.
Yeah, exactly. They're here.
They're on their TikToks.
And I think that, like, honestly, it makes me so happy. Dramedy is one of my favorite days of the year. It is like absolute dog shit. I lose money if anything.
Listen.
Dog shit financially.
Yeah, I'm not. None of what we are doing here is in the red,
literally,
or black, or whatever it is.
But I just think it's really amazing because, you know, we talked about this. Like when I was here and I was coming up, I was like desperately looking for community. I was looking for mentors. I was looking for a space. I was looking for a stage, and it just didn't exist. And I felt lucky enough that I, in part because of my history of like theater and directing, I love producing shows. Yeah. And producing shows, I didn't start producing shows because I wanted to book myself. I started producing shows because I had ideas of how to do things differently.
And how to do things accurately.
Yes.
I see so many poorly produced shows. Like, that's why I've had this, like, idea to do a festival in my back pocket for years, because I see so many badly produced festivals.
Yes.
Like, what do you mean you said you were going to get back to us by mid-February and lineups were going to be March 1st, and now it's March 4th? This is a call out.
Yeah, well.
This is a call out. We might be thinking about the same festival, but anyway. But yeah, that's what producing is. Like, you can do it well, and you can do it good.
You can do it well, you can do it good, and I think that also, like, I felt very blessed that I didn't need to fight through the traditional channels, like especially with drag, of having to be accepted, or with comedy. Like, I think my background is in theater, and I still love theater. I still do theater, but one thing that I love about these sort of more variety show acts is in theater, you have to get somebody else to see what you can do before you have an opportunity to show them.
To do it.
Like, you have to get somebody else to believe in you and to tell you that you deserve to be there. Whereas, like, the thing I loved about fucking stand-up comedy is, like, no, bitch, the audience will tell you.
Yeah, they'll let you know right here,
They will let you know. And you can get up on that stage, and for those 5 minutes, it really is just like, can you do it or can you not do it? And that's what people are seeing. And I think that for drag, I had all of these, like, folks who would come up to me after Hen House and be like, hey, I've always wanted to do drag, or I've always wanted to do burlesque.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips for new performers? And I got tired of just being like, yeah, you know, like, just go for it, you know, because it's just like...
Let's go for it where?
Literally.
Like, where are we sending these people?
So I decided to create a space that I would have wanted.
Exactly.
And to give people that opportunity again, it's like, hey, you don't need to audition. You don't need me to think that you are something. You don't need anyone else to think you're something. You need to be brave enough to get up on that stage, and then the rest will happen.
And do it for them.
Exactly. Yeah. And then what's more, I think another real big part of my goal with dramedy was to have a space that was more eclectic in terms of, I have drag folks who have never been to a stand-up comedy show who are seeing queer comedians for the first time. I have drag folks who it is their first performance, performing alongside people who book shows.
Exactly.
And run shows. I have folks who are doing this professionally who like perform in New York and like all over the place, who then are performing again with people who have been on the stage 3 times. And I think that it calls everyone higher, and it allows everybody to establish connections in like different ways, to have the opportunity backstage to go up to someone and be like, oh my god, I saw your stuff, and like, I think you're really amazing.
It's networking. It's literally networking. Like, I see so many people at Dramedy where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna follow you and keep an eye on you, and I know, like, I see you have it, but you need maybe like 5 more months to really get it, and then you're on the list for people who are like, okay, yeah, oh, you're looking to book like an all South Asian show in DC? Let me get you. Let me look at the spreadsheet of names I've like occurred, because that's how you find people. It's networking, it's community building, and it's looking at folks and saying like, oh, I want to work with you. I want to do stuff like you. I want to be like you. Because the thing is, like, coming up in this city, when I first got here, there was maybe like 2 comics I wanted to be like. I didn't want to be like anybody else in the city. Like, there's no role model. Like, we talked about this about drag. It's not a city built on mentorship that much because people leave. But I think you've created something that allows folks to see others who are doing stuff that they like and building community even beyond Dramedy. Like, there's so many little classes and cohorts that I've seen pop out of Dramedy, and we can... I mean, the Queer Upstairs is not from Dramedy, but there's so much overlap, too, I would say, just based on an outside perspective of, like, the performers and a lot of the kings that work and come through Dramedy. And I could be misinterpreting.
For the Queers Upstairs.
Yes.
Yeah, so the Queers Upstairs is, like, really incredible. It was started by my friend Al, who, has given so many different folks an opportunity, including, some younger drag performers who run shows with the Queers Upstairs. And I would say, there is, like, obviously they have a lot of their own connections outside of Dramedy, but I think that Dramedy has been a really incredible place for some of those younger producers whose goal is essentially to be like, I want to platform newer performers who I think are amazing, and also other performers as well, to be able, like, to fuse those two communities, I think has been really great and has been really helpful, and has just been a good thing all around for everyone. Yeah,
like, I think about people like Beth and Orion who are, like, doing their own open stage now, like, Just the Tip, and, like, I just saw Beth last week at Metro Gallery.
Yeah!
And that was wild. I brought my friend Dwayne, who was in...
At Bimbo Night?
Yes, at Bimbo Night! Because my friend Dwayne was in... for Laugh Tracks Comedy Show. Next one is March 29th. That's the plug. Was in for Laugh Tracks, and we got to go down to Metro Gallery, and I'm like, welcome to Baltimore Drag. Here you go. Beth is up on stage screaming. I love that. Love! So we talked about a little bit about the different producers and stuff going on, so I want to talk about what you have coming up. So you have a whole list of things that you were telling me about that are on the way. So let's talk about what's coming to the Eagle, because I've lived in the city for a while and I've seen many different versions of the Eagle, and I think it's really exciting to see this new, like, brand spanking new, like, version of the Eagle, where there's more programming that is not just classic Eagle programming, so to speak. Yeah. So what's coming up at the Eagle for you?
All right, so Queers Upstairs is moving to the Eagle.
The Crow's Nest upstairs, fantastic.
The Crow's Nest, indeed. And so every Thursday night, they're going to have a different situation. Yeah. So Max Mayhem is going to be running Monthly Mayhem, which is coming over from the old Alisana location. Yes. We have Samia running karaoke. And then I am running a new show. It is currently called Surprise with Kenny. And that is because I want the possibility of changing what that show is at any time. But this first one is going to be a lip sync battle competition show. Okay. So it is going to be open sign up in advance. We are going to have 10 competitors. Mm-hmm. There is going to be a prize at the end of it. Mm-hmm. And basically it's going to be like a bracket style head to head. The songs will be released beforehand. Okay. And it's going to be a fucking blast. It's going to be a great time. You don't have to be in drag or do drag to perform. You just have to lip sync the house down, honey. We used to have a show like this as Ismos that I took over from Kiki Anderson when she left to go to LA. It was just called Lip Sync Battle. It was more based on like Spike TV's Lip Sync Battle, but it was all just comedy lip sync numbers. So I had one that I worked up the day Catherine Pugh got like impeached as mayor,
and I read that off on stage while holding a Healthy Holly book. But then I did It's Raining Men number as a fucking weatherman, and I had an umbrella full of army men that I opened up at the start of the song, and army men went everywhere. So all of this sounds amazing.
Obsessed.
I love a stupid number, and on the nose number, I did one of Juice by Lizzo, and I drank like a gallon of orange juice on stage, and then threw up after.
And that's art.
That's art, baby. So please stay tuned. You said that's March 20th?
Yes, so that's March 20th.
Okay.
And then the 23rd, Dramedy at Baltimore Improv Group.
Sign-ups are closed.
Sign-ups were open for an hour and a half.
That's wild.
It was crazy. And it's so overbooked.
Yeah.
We have 40 plus people. I know. And then I have like new people being like, "Excuse me, could I perhaps?" And I'm like, Thank you for doing that. Thank you to the Baltimore Improv Group and Hannah Alden Jeffrey for helping with that too. Oh my god, absolutely. Angels, saints, heroes. Exquisite. Incredible. Okay. It's the 28th. Got it. Is Drag Me to Comedy Bingo. Fantastic. At Zissimo's. You play bingo based off the stand-up comedian sets. If you get bingo, you get a prize, and the comedian on stage has to lip sync for their life. It's just a way to make comedians lip sync. Pretty much. And also there will be featured drag performances hosted by Nicolas Cage. And then the last thing I have this month is a Ursula show. An Ursula long-form burlesque show, baby. I won't be saying any more about that because I haven't cemented the form yet. What if you just called it Tentacles? It's just called Ursula. It's just called Ursula. Tentacles, I think, has a 50-50 of attracting a crowd that might be disappointed by my festive art. But they'll be disappointed after they've paid. We love a scam. That is true. We love a scam. Resell those tickets. Please. So that is everything you have coming up sort of for March, and this will be coming out, I think like March 12th, whatever next Wednesday is. I'll put it in the break. So where can people find you if they want to follow all these things? Okay, you can follow me at Kenny and Dickolas. KennyAndDickkolas, or at KRDC shows. Yes. Also, quick side note, it has come to my attention that many people think my name, it's always old straight people, think my name is Dickless Cage, as in without a dick, as in Dickless Cage. It's not. It's Dickolas. And Dickolas wants you to know he is not Dickless, and he takes personal offense at that. It's like the fucking actor, guys. Like, literally! It's not that hard upon, like, I've seen so many, like, my go-to backup drag name is Maggie Cumloud, and I'm worried that people wouldn't get the pun. Obsessed. Maggie Cumloud, or just some lady, because the idea of being brought up on stage is just, and please welcome, some lady. Honestly obsessed. Maybe the day. Dramedy. Listen, Kenny, I've been working on a burlesque number for months, and the whole idea would be to come out as the Natty Bow guy and do a sexy strip number. It's expensive. I bought so many clothes from Route 1 Apparel that just... Sponsored! TM! So the day I figure out how to do a Good Morning Baltimore trap remix, then we'll talk. I've got people on the case. I've asked Violet for help with this. Yes. That's the problem. There's so many ingredients to a good burlesque number. I can't just show up with my notebook and be like, I'm doing it now. I've got everything but the shorts and the music, so stay tuned. Oh my god. So we've come to the end of our show. Before we get off this train of thought, is there anything else you'd like to say? Anything else I would like to say? I would like to say that... What was it called? Burlesque? Burlesque. Rest in peace. Burlesque. Yeah, that sounds like a phenomenal job. Fellow white people, stop ruining things. That's so trash. Would have loved to see some bears lesking. They are still performing as individuals. So I will send you the individual performers' information. It's not the guy who was running it. Okay. Yeah. So they're still out there doing good stuff. It was just the guy behind it who was bad. Would you believe a man who ran things was bad? No! Shocker! I guess that's all. That's all, folks. Tune in next week when we'll do another episode of this. Until then, take care of each other. Goodbye. Woo! We're done. We did a podcast. Wow. Incredible. Amazing.